Hi, I'm Yulia, and this is the News Brief. Today we're going to be talking about how Trump's lies result in Putin's impunity. And of course, we're going to discuss it together in the comments, so you don't have to suffer alone, and I don't have to suffer alone. So please leave your thoughts, questions, suggestions, anything you have on your mind down below. I'll read it as per usual, and I really appreciate this back and forth communication that we have. I apologize in advance for sounding quite tired and looking quite tired as well, probably. If you have watched the news, you likely know why. Let's go. So, recently, Trump has produced one of his, I guess, countless lies at this point, and said that it is the fault of Obama and Justin Trudeau for starting the war in Ukraine because they kicked out Putin from G8. And this is one of his speeches that is supposed to convince, I guess, the world society and the world leaders to bring Putin back onto the world stage into G7. However, the funny thing is, one, Justin Trudeau wasn't even prime minister when Putin was kicked out of G8 after invading Ukraine in 2014. Justin Trudeau was not in the picture. And I mean, if you have been following everything that's been happening in the US and all the millions of people that are protesting against Trump, then you know that he lies a lot. But at this point, it's so damaging. And his impunity for Putin and just the sheer amount of ridiculous lies that he produces and them being unchecked and them being not called out and not fact-checked and not fixed is just like, I feel like we live in the Matrix at this point. Recently, I was watching, and this is a bit of a digression from our subject today, but I want to point out how ridiculous these lies are. So this one surrounds the fact that Justin Trudeau is to blame for Russia attacking Ukraine because he personally kicked out Putin from G8, while he wasn't even prime minister and had nothing to do with it. He was not in the decision-making position in Canada at that time. Ridiculous. But I'm sure Trump's press secretary is going to spin it to say that Justin Trudeau was in the government anyway, and that is his fault because he was in charge of, I don't know, talking to someone about it. Because recently I was watching a journalist who has worked with many, many American administrations asking a question at a press conference at the White House to Trump's press secretary, Caroline Leavitt. Honestly, evil incarnate at this point. He asked a question about the visit of the South African president Ramaphosa and how Trump pulled out pictures from what he deemed as burial sites of white farmers that have been killed because of their skin color. And he said that on this picture, you could see those farmers being buried. Now, that picture, the particular picture that they're referring to, was actually not even from South Africa. It was from a different country, from a completely different time period. And his press secretary, instead of actually giving a reasonable answer, said, well, these did represent white farmers that were killed. And he was talking about the fact that the crosses were meant for white farmers that were killed, even though the whole situation was actually, like, what they were talking about was the protest, and it was not a protest against killing white farmers, it was a protest against killing farmers. Only 2 white farmers died. Not that only is, an excuse by any means, but it's not like it's an actual genocide issue that's happening in South Africa. If anything, Black South Africans face a lot more scrutiny and a lot more discrimination and a lot more apartheid still. But where I'm going here is that they were talking about the event to which Trump showed a completely different picture that didn't even belong to that event. They described the event wrong. He described the event wrong. He lied about the whole situation, showed the wrong pictures, and then his press secretary, instead of saying, hey, he made a mistake or something like that, doubled down on it and tried to spin it so that it would fit the narrative that Trump put out there. And this has been happening with Russia and Ukraine, right? And the reason why I'm bringing this up, which you might think is unrelated, is because Trump saying things like, oh, it's actually Justin Trudeau's fault, or oh, it's someone else's fault, oh, it's NATO's fault, oh, it's Obama's fault, it's Biden's fault, it's whoever's fault, not Putin, gives Putin an understanding that no matter what he does, Trump is going to do what his press secretary does for him and spin it so that it's actually favorable to Putin and he's going to go unpunished. So that gives him the opportunity and not even the opportunity, but that gives him the gall to continue bombing Ukraine and the gall to continue doing completely atrocious, inhumane things here, knowing that he's going to get away with them. One of those completely atrocious, inhumane things was last night. We had about over 30 missiles and over 400 drones launched at Odesa and Kyiv and some other cities in Ukraine, but predominantly it was at Kyiv and then next was Odesa. From about midnight to 7:30 or actually maybe even 9 a.m., the air raid lasted 11 hours and over 100 people were injured and 15 people have been confirmed dead. There were drones and missiles flying into civilian buildings, into critical infrastructure, obviously into the same objects as Putin always sends them, right? But normally, when Putin does that, they at least try to pretend like, oh, the drone lost control and it was actually targeting a military infrastructure complex, but, you know, the Ukrainian air defense took it down and that's why it landed on a civilian building. Or like, oh, this missile was actually targeting an unexistent military production site near a kindergarten. This time, you can see videos on the internet of a drone flying straight into a civilian residential high-rise building. And you can spin it. And they're not even trying to spin it because they don't care to spin it anymore. They don't need to. Trump is going to spin that for them. And Caroline Leavitt is going to work after hours to spin it for him. So we see a video of a building that folded because a missile hit it. It was a building of, I believe, over 10 floors and only 1.5 is left, and that's a generous description because really there's just rubble on top of it. There is a famous Ukrainian sous chef who was on a bunch of TV shows, you know, like kind of MasterChef Ukraine stuff. She was a producer there. She used to be a producer there. She also worked at a lot of famous restaurants, and she's generally like a big name in the restaurant community here in Kyiv. She was in that building and she was injured, and now she's in the ICU in a hospital and she's on life support and they're fighting for her life. So we don't know what's going to happen there, but there are countless fundraisers for her family and for her care in order to bring her back to, to life, literally. And that's just one example. Another building, we saw a video of a drone quite literally flying straight into it. And it destroyed a whole wing of the building. It just exploded. It flew straight into an apartment and exploded. And if you think that only that apartment, suffered, then you're quite naive because that's not how drone explosions work. That building has suffered tremendously as well. And during this attack, one person that died was Glenn Grandy Frederick, who is an American citizen who's 62 years old. And that actually drew a significant amount of media attention, and I think in the US. And I can already imagine that the death of this man who came to Ukraine, just lived here, was a civilian, is kind of like, was at the wrong place at the wrong time, is going to be spun by his own country's media as him doing it to himself because he went to Ukraine, to do whatever it is, and he put himself in danger by being in a war zone. And that's kind of what's so wrong with this entire situation. There is Russia that attacks civilians daily, and normally at least even tries to make it sound like they were actually shooting, military targets. But at this point, just blatantly does it and doesn't care and admits to it, right? We have Russia doing that, and we have civilians in Ukraine dying, now an American citizen dying because of Russia's goal. And we have the US stand there and say that it's anyone's fault but Putin. It's the fault of previous presidents, prime ministers that weren't even at their post or elected at that point yet. It's the fault of international defense organizations. It's the fault of the European Union. It's the fault of absolutely everyone, except for the person in the country that's actually committing these atrocities, while no one strikes back, right? So you can't even use these excuses because Russia is, sitting there unpunished. Nothing's really happening in Russia. Yes, Ukraine had a couple of successful operations on actual military infrastructure, and no one suffered any casualties or fatalities because we weren't targeting civilians. So Russia is just getting cruder and cruder every day and emboldened every day because of the American administration, their lies and their actions. And I guess one of the other absolutely vile things that it resulted in is I recently saw that Russia offered to exchange kidnapped Ukrainian children. So they have now fully admitted to having kidnapped Ukrainian children, right? For the soldiers that Ukraine took as prisoners of war. If you think that that's progress and that's great, which it is, because it's amazing to, bring Ukrainian children back to Ukraine, because Russia doesn't want to do that, and until recently didn't even admit that they did kidnap Ukrainian children. Now they're blatantly on the world stage saying that they're committing crimes of genocide, like kidnapping kids and indoctrinating them, and they're offering to exchange those kids for POWs. The reason why they're doing that is because they want more Russian soldiers back so they can send them back to the front, because they're suffering because they don't have enough recruitment and they don't have enough bodies anymore willing to go fight for them. And it's very evident from them recruiting soldiers from other countries. But let me backtrack again. Russia admits on the world stage that they have kidnapped numerous Ukrainian children, and they want to exchange those Ukrainian children that they kidnapped, a crime of genocide again, for prisoners of war. And the world is cheering it on as in like, yay, finally Ukraine's gonna be able to return the kidnapped children back. I think the larger issue is that, great, we now have proof that Russia has kidnapped Ukrainian children. How is this a normal exchange? Prisoners of war, people who came to commit atrocities, for children who were kidnapped. Those children should be returned to Ukraine just because Russia has admitted to having kidnapped them. And of course, the American administration isn't even talking about it on TV or anywhere else, because why? No need to, right? It's just, it doesn't fit with the narrative of blaming Trudeau and Obama for everything. However, when it comes to Israel and Israel striking Iran, or the absolutely horrific conflict that's a war that's been happening there, Trump consistently keeps cheering on Israel, saying that Israel is doing a fantastic job and more is to come, and that the US is happy to help and ready to help. Yeah, we have that. And while Ukrainians are obviously very happy that nuclear facilities, drone facilities, and missile facilities are being destroyed in Iran by Israel, because Iran supplies those to Russia, so that inadvertently helps us, it's where is that energy when it comes to actually punishing Russia? When it comes to punishing Iran, it's there. When it comes to punishing Russia, we get lies and just frankly a circus of defending those lies. Unfortunately, that's all I have for you for today. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode in a very twisted way, because obviously there is nothing to enjoy about those words. But if you would like to stay informed and you would like to see more briefs like this, please don't forget to follow this channel, turn on all of your notifications, send this video to a friend, give it a like, and of course, comment your thoughts, questions, suggestions, or maybe something that you might want to hear about in the next episodes, and I'll be sure to read it, and I'll see you next time.